Good evening, Sanbonani Dumelang. Welcome to episode 112 of the Private Property Podcast. I'm your host, Zama Kumalo. It's the Monday edition of the Private Property Podcast. And of course, we've got a jam-packed week for you this evening, where we're talking about different things that have to do with our property and our property investment journey. We really are making, the journey easier for you, better for you, and really equipping you with the tools that you need to maximize not just your property portfolio, but really make the best of your home. And one of the things that we're going to be looking at this evening that I'm sure a lot of us have probably, thought about, especially right now, finding ourselves in our respective homes, but also trying to find different ways to maximize our money and maximize our rands as much as possible. And that's, of course, looking at 4 home improvement projects you should invest in. So this is whether you already own your property and you want to invest in that home improvement project that's going to add a little bit more value to your home. Maybe you'll be able to rent it out, better, get a really good tenants. Or perhaps you're looking at selling your property. You probably don't want to spend too much money, looking at what kind of projects you can do that could add value to your property. That's what we'll be looking at this evening. And the guest that joins me is somebody who's no stranger to us here on the Private Property Podcast. Of course, it is the very talented Lulu Mutsikira, who is the creative director at Namasaya. Lulu, thank you so much for joining us. Good evening.
Thank you for having me, Zama.
And Lulu, the last time you were with us, we were talking about so many different great things when people are doing home improvements. We found that we're spending so much time at home. And of course, a lot of people are even looking at various DIY projects they can do, the different ways to maximize their homes and even doing home offices. But now we're looking at people who are looking to invest in very good, home improvement projects, because you want to add that little bit of value. Maybe you're looking at either selling your property, or maybe you want to, rent it out. So you want to get that right tenant by just fixing up a few things and making it look better so that you can either sell it at the price point that you want or get the tenant that you want to get in. So let's go through, that first home improvement project that every single one of us should certainly consider, investing in if we're looking to either sell or certainly rent out our properties.
Thanks, Zama. I think the starting point, as you've mentioned, is really around taking a look at what your intention for the improvement is. So if you are looking to reinvest, there are 2 key improvement options that one is always encouraged to take, and that's the first one would be the remodeling of the kitchen. And the second one would be the remodeling of the bathrooms. Those are the easiest and the most the ones that people noticed the quickest when they are walking into the home space. So obviously, as a person walks into a home, if you're trying to sell or even trying to rent the home, the kitchen and the bathrooms are the 2 spaces that are occupied most, and they're the 2 spaces that people are looking to have be the most right upon buying or upon renting. So those 2 are definitely the key areas.
And, when I think about kitchen and bathroom, and I've said it here on the Private Property Podcast, is that it's also just such a huge cost. We've seen kitchen remodeling, going up to over 100,000 rands. You're choosing all kinds of gloss boards because you want it to be over the top. But of course, if you're looking at, investment and making sure that you maximize your rands, you also want to be mindful of that. Maybe take us through some of the things we should be looking out for when we're doing a kitchen or a bathroom remodel, because sometimes people just get it so wrong. Whether you use, material that is too cheap, so it's not going to, last you for a long period of time. So by the moment, the first tenants move out, the cupboards are so broken down that you basically need to remove, change them altogether, which obviously eats into your bottom line. Or sometimes you choose finishes that are just too expensive, that you end up just spending so much money that really you end up losing money. So we almost want to find that really good balance when you're doing, those home improvements in the kitchen and the bathroom. Perhaps share with us certain tips that we need to be mindful of when we're doing those home improvement projects, especially in the kitchen and the bathroom.
Balance is key. I love that you use the word, finding that equitable balance. If you're investing in a space, obviously you're looking for a return on investment. So make sure that you're utilizing materials, utilizing suppliers and buying or sourcing the items or the materials that are going to give you the best return on investment. With regards to kitchens, there's certain things in the kitchen that give you the best and most quickest result by way of visual appeal, but also by way of quality, long-term longevity quality. The standard of the cabinetry that you're using is very important. But as a starting point, the design and layout of the kitchen. So if you're going for a big, large remodeling job, make sure that the things that you're changing in the structure of the kitchen or the way in which you've laid out the kitchen is conducive for a better living environment. That's the first thing. And then once you go into the nitty-gritties and the detail of the material that you're using, if you're a reseller or if you're looking to invest for rental purposes, make sure you're using materials and colors that are generic versus very specific to your personal style. So we do a lot of homes for people who really want to improve their personal homes, and they're planning to live for a long time in those homes. That's when it's perfectly, it's perfectly fine to stain or to put in deep blue cabinets. But deep blue is not going to be a color that's going to be in style for the next 20 years. So if you're looking to have very sturdy cabinets put in place, make sure they're in a color, or in a range that can stand the test of time. So longevity by way of design, but also longevity by way of style is one tip that I'll definitely recommend. The second one is your finishes. So when you're looking to make that investment, but you're not necessarily looking to do it in an expensive way, start looking at your finishes. How does your stove look? How does your tap look? People never take focus onto the tap, or even that the grill, the sink grill. Those small changes can make such a huge impact in how the overall aesthetic and overall functionality of the space. We've used some of the taps that we've rented in. You use it for 50 years and it's never been changed. It's still those piri ones that we used way back when. And just a small investment by way of a tap change can make a huge difference in the kitchen. Bathrooms, very similar. Tiling. Just by changing the tiles in a bathroom, you can make a huge difference in how it aesthetically looks. The toilets. Nobody wants to use a toilet that's been there for 10 years. Change the toilet. It's a small investment, but it will make a huge difference by way, again, of visual, but also functional appeal. So you don't have to always look at making a massive, dramatic change, but sometimes just changing small features like backsplashes in kitchens, tiles in bathrooms, the fixtures like the sinks, fixtures such as taps, shower heads, those little changes can make a huge difference.
And Lulu, I actually love that you bring up those small little changes that we can do, because I know a lot of us probably don't even think about some of them. I mean, as we were talking about taps, I think to myself, I've definitely been in, I've viewed various properties where I look at a tap and I was like, this was installed before I was probably born. Nobody even still uses these taps. And yet the overall, apartment looks or house looks great, but you're just looking at the finishes and you're thinking, why were these taps never changed for all these years? And that even brings me, to the issue of tiling and the color sometimes of the tiles, or the color of, the cupboards that are used, for example, for the boards that are used for the kitchen. I think you tend to sometimes find people using like a red, and you're thinking nobody wants a red kitchen. Or a pink bathroom. Those are things that if you're going to be living there for an extended period of time, certainly fantastic. But the moment you're looking to sell it or perhaps even rent it out, those colors can be quite jarring. So trying to stick to very generic neutral colors becomes such an important thing for certainly a lot of us to consider, because I know a lot of people have probably seen, especially kitchens and bathrooms, that are a horrendous color, and you're thinking, how do people even live in that particular apartment or house with those particular colors? So Lulu, I mean, let's maybe explore some of the other home improvement projects that we should be investing in. We certainly look at understanding the intention of the project. So now viewers know that they're clear of what the intention is, and they're focused perhaps on the kitchen and the bathroom, and they now know the tweaks that they can make that could either have their property sell quicker, or certainly make it look more attractable, because I think, or attractive rather, because I think one of the big things, especially when it comes to selling your property, is you want more people viewing your property. You know, you want to widen the pool of people who are viewing your property and making offers on your property. So these small little tweaks certainly do go a long way. What are the other areas that we should be considering in terms of improving that will ensure that, you know, we get maximum return on our properties?
So if you're not going to go with the more big remodeling or the bigger projects like kitchens and bathrooms, there's smaller tweaks that you can make to your property by way of investment, again, by way of reselling or renting out. And those smaller ones are the standard game changers, but they make a huge difference. Painting the interior, painting the exterior of your property makes a huge difference in how it picks the space up. I always say to clients, give me money to paint and I will show you that your home is as beautiful as you imagined it when you first walked into the property. A paint job makes a huge difference, and it's not a massive cost. Again, if it's an investment property, look for neutral colors, the grays, the beiges, the whites. Those are very neutral colors that can work with any finishings that go into a space, or any sort of installations that people who come into the space after you will want to put in place. So definitely look at generic paint work. And then another one is definitely flooring. Carpets are lovely. They are soft and they're lush, but they can be very problematic long term. People have allergic reactions. That's something that we find quite often. And homes that have carpets, unfortunately, that have been sitting for a long time without being adequately cleaned, or without, having allergen sort of functionalities already in place within those carpets, can become problematic for people moving into the spaces. And also just by way of cleanliness, sometimes you just need it to look clean, and carpets can tend to not give you sort of that beautiful clean aesthetic. So changing the type of flooring, maybe going from carpet to tile, going from carpet to laminate flooring or wooden flooring if you've got, a budget that stretches a little bit further. Those are definitely strong options, and they make a huge difference to the space. If you do love carpets and you want to keep carpets, ensure that they are adequately cleaned when you do have when you're looking to then reinvest the property or put the property up. But if you're investing for staying in the space, again, just make sure that they are cleaned consistently, or change them up so that you do get sort of a freshened up appeal for the space.
And that's something that's so important. I think that's actually one of the things that I also changed in one of my, properties, was just changing the flooring. I went from, removing the carpets. I had an allergic reaction. My sinuses were killing me. But also the moment, you've stepped on it a couple of times, it becomes this different color, and your space feels like it's dirty, even though it's not dirty. And it certainly does make a big difference the moment you put on, whether it's tiling or laminated flooring. In my instance, I put on tiling and just change the tiles. And I think one of the other things is, one of the properties, or I think it was two of the properties, had very brown, those Kilimanjaro tiles that were also put in over 15 years ago, and just changing it to a lighter color that just brightened up the space, made it look newer and fresher, whereas before it just looked like this dull place that even I didn't want to step into. And even though, the tiles were cleaned, because of the color and because it was so old, and it really was more of those, exterior tiles, but they were for some reason put inside, it really did, the aesthetic just wasn't as pleasing. Lulu, I want us to go for a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to take questions and comments from our viewers at home, but also look at certain home improvements that we can invest in order to either resell our properties, or if we want to rent it out. We really want to hit those spots when it comes to our home improvements. I saw your comment there, Nkateko, about how taps are so expensive, and I think it is one of those things that you need to shop around and compare. There are really good places. I always say sometimes you must find this Scotty that has these nice, tools that you can use for your home. So maybe it's about shopping around, comparing a little bit, maybe waiting for the clearance sale to come, and making sure that you also adequately budget. And this is something that, Lulu was mentioned earlier, that when you plan your home improvement project, you're also going to then look at things like your budget, because you want to make sure that you don't go over budget. You don't walk into a warehouse and think, oh my gosh, there are these great matte taps which are now in vogue and I love them, and you're thinking, let me rather get those, when actually this is not the home you're going to be living in. So
yes,
so that you also understand why it is that you're doing that particular home improvement becomes so important. We're going to go for a quick break, and when we come back, I want to hear from you about some of the home improvements that you've also made in your home. What were some of those home improvements that you made that you saw it was a very good investment? If you had to sell your property, you saw that it sold your property fairly quicker or relatively quicker than if maybe you hadn't done that particular home improvement, or if you wanted to rent it out, making that slight little tweak made sure that you're able to get tenants quicker, more efficiently, and the right tenant that you wanted to have in that property. We're going to be back just after this. Welcome back to episode 112 of the Private Property Podcast. I'm your host, Zama Khumalo. This evening, I'm joined by Lulu Mutsikira, who is the creative director of Namasaya. We're looking at 4 home improvement projects you should invest in. And before we, get back to our conversation, of course, if you want to carry on, our conversation, one of the really big things, of course, and something that we're very excited here on Private Property is, of course, that virtual property show. It's going to be such an incredible offering. I'll also be there on Saturday and on the 2nd and the 3rd of October, and it really is a show that you do not want to miss. We've got amazing exhibitors who are going to be with us, that you're also going to have an opportunity to interact with. There are various sessions that you definitely want to sign on to and have a sense of the different tips and tools that we share here, even on the Private Property Podcast, where now you'll also have direct access to some of the speakers that we've had here and some of big industry leaders in the property sector. So do make sure that you go to privateproperty.co.za, sign up in order to be part of the virtual property show. We do look forward to having you on the show with us and really enjoying the weekend that is all things property and real estate, and making sure that whether you're a tenant, you're a buyer, you're a seller, you're even an investor, of course, because we speak a lot to a lot of your homeowner investors, you're able to access the right tools, tricks, advice that will help you on your home ownership and home investment journey. But to get back to this evening's conversation, I want to hear from you about the home improvement projects that you've done that you felt this was a very good investment. I got the return that I wanted, and the return could have been selling your property at the right price point that you wanted, or perhaps having it rented out to a particular type of tenant or at a particular price point. Because we know that when people walk into a property, we're now so spoiled for choice, especially as people who want to rent. There's so many properties on the market right now, so it really is overstocked, especially if you looked at areas like in Gauteng, where there's quite a lot of stock on the market. So we are spoiled for choice, and I think every homeowner, every investor wants their property to be able to stand out. So we're looking at some of those things that you can do that will really have people standing up when you post that listing on privateproperty.co.za. Lulu, let's then get to the other home improvement that viewers at home can look at. I mean, we've looked at your kitchen and your bathroom that adds so much value, makes such a big difference, and it doesn't even have to be a complete remodel. It could be, as you were saying, looking at the fixtures, so perhaps changing whether it's things like taps, and making sure that, or even the toilet, making sure that you're not doing a whole kitchen remodel. Could you just be changing the sink? And I actually hadn't thought of that one, because there are now all these great fancy sinks and they're not that expensive, so you're just changing that and everything else stays the same, and the kitchen does have a feel that, oh wow, this was made up, but actually it wasn't. You've just made one change and it has such a big difference on the space. You know, we've also looked at perhaps painting. The paint job always does and goes such a long way. Whether you're doing an interior or exterior paint, you definitely want to make sure that you do a great job. Choose neutral colors, because then more people will be able to gravitate towards it. You don't want to, you know, choose very personal colors like a purple or a blue, and not a lot of people are going to want to move into an apartment that has a purple bedroom. And of course, looking at, you know, changing the flooring. So as Lulu was saying, maybe instead of having carpets, which are great for your own home, maybe just look at laminated flooring or perhaps even tiles, because those tend to last longer, it's easier to clean. And if you have people who are sometimes allergic like myself, you're not going to have those kind of issues. So Lulu, what's another home improvement that we should think of when you're looking at either reselling or certainly renting out our property?
Zama, there's one that is the underdog of the home improvement space, and that's the exterior landscaping. And I bring it up because it can add such value to your property, but also it just, from an appeal perspective, it's going to get more people walking into that space, wanting to take a look and wanting to put in that offer. When the exterior, and this is really for people with larger homes or even people with the little gardens in the exterior of these spaces. Sometimes you walk into these properties and you know, that little patch that they've got, they view it as not important, but the little patch is brown. You can see that there's never been any grass in that space, and I believe there's so much potential at a low cost, especially for smaller apartments, to make such a huge difference in the landscaping of those traditionally small spaces. And then again, for homes as well, it becomes so critical to make sure that what people see when they enter, before they're even inside the house, is beautiful and laid out quite nicely. So landscaping is a nice little touch that one can make. And maybe the term landscaping is a bit scary, because I know when people think landscaping, they're thinking water fountains and features.
And I was actually about to say that, Lulu, that, you know, the moment you use landscaping, I know a lot of people, you know, set up. It was actually one of the questions that Utembu Butelezi asked us here on Facebook. She was saying, how important is the garden when you're thinking about selling? Is this an area you should invest in, or just make sure it's properly maintained? Gardens can be so expensive. So as you're saying, people just think landscaping. I also just think, oh my word, you're going to be charged per square meter and it's a lot of money. But of course, there are different ways to kind of go about it and not do it in a necessarily cost in a way that's going to cost you a lot of money.
Yeah, 100%. Yes, I believe as I'm talking, I'm thinking, oh gosh, they're going to be worried that I'm talking about large scale landscaping with a, you know, full on design. It doesn't have to be like that. Obviously, if you've got the bank, if you've got the budget, definitely explore doing something of that nature, because it really does add to the aesthetic of the space. But for those of us who are a little bit pocket strapped or budget worried, it just means making sure that your garden is well maintained. It looks pleasing. There is grass. You know, you put some flowers and you've thought about where your plants are sitting, where your flower beds are. It's just a little bit thought out, and it doesn't have to be a professional who does that. You can do that yourself with your gardener. Just making sure things are placed, you know, appropriately, and that there's at the very least grass in an area that is supposed to have grass.
And of course, yes.
And then also, if you're looking at the outside, even the deck area or the patio area, invest, put some investment around decking that space if you've got budget. Put some investment around just making sure that even that patio space is aesthetically pleasing and is not, used as another, an additional storage facility, which a lot of small property owners tend to do.
And we do that. I think, the patio ends up being, you put all these different boxes, you buy those boxes at warehouses that are black and you just put things there. And the moment people come and view your property, they're thinking, but they can't even imagine themselves in that space. So even if it's just something as simple as don't use it as a storage, you just have the normal chairs and tables that you have there, maybe put a flower arrangement, and that's it. So it's not even about, transforming the space completely, but having it neat and looking the way that it certainly needs to does go quite a long way. Well, of course, taking your comments and questions at home, I want to hear from you. If there's a home improvement that you've done before that's made quite a bit of a change in how you either sell your property or rent your property, do share that with us. I think one of the ones that a lot of people at home tend to consider is adding additional rooms. And another question here coming from Mutembu Butelesi is, if I want to add an extra room to bring added value to a property, what would you recommend, bedroom or full bathroom?
That was actually one I was going to mention around the bathroom. So a bathroom is definitely first prize with regards to any additions that you're doing, but also it's really dependent on how your current property is set up. So if you're sitting in a scenario where there is an ensuite maybe for the main bedroom, but that the other rooms are sharing, maybe there's 2 bedrooms and they've got a sharing bathroom, and that bathroom potentially is upstairs, adding a little bit of a bathroom or a little bit of a toilet downstairs is always a huge win. So first prize, definitely a bathroom addition. But if you've got the space to add bedroom as well, go for it. Zama, you'll be more sort of aligned with what sort of bedroom dynamic is the most appropriate currently in the market. So how many bedrooms are people looking for in the market? But an additional bathroom and just giving people more privacy is always a win.
And it really is such a big thing. I mean, I've seen people who, you look at some apartments, let's say in Joburg North, and it's a 2-bed, 1-bath, and you know that you're going to be sharing it, so you're not going to be living alone. You want that separate bathroom for yourself. You don't want to have to share a bathroom. So finding an apartment that's 2-bed, 2-bath makes such a huge difference. And if you're able to do that in your own home, so you've got, a freestanding house and you're able to add that, separate bathroom, or if one of the bedrooms is big enough and you just make it ensuite, doesn't even have to have a full bath. So it can be a shower and a toilet. That goes such a long way, because I think one of the really big things is, depending on where your area is and what your demographic in terms of the type of tenant that you want, having, for example, a 3-bed goes such a long way, because now you're targeting, small families, so they're able to have their 2 kids that would have their various, bedrooms, and then of course you and your partner share their 1 bedroom. And so understanding who your target market is, what their needs are. So if your property is close to a school, you very likely are targeting that, small family, and they want those separate bedrooms for everybody. And of course, mom and dad might not want to share a bathroom with their children, so you want it to be maybe a 3-bed, 2-bath. So understanding those, dynamics becomes so important when you're looking to redo your property, or even when I think some people are probably looking to redo it from scratch. So when you're adding an extra room from scratch, you certainly want to be thinking about that. And if you do have this space, even a small bathroom helps. I think a shower, let's not even think of baths. People typically don't do baths in this day and age. So just having that shower and your toilet goes such a long way. Doesn't even have to be that big in many instances. We've got a comment here from Glad Sharinda saying, I listed a house for rental. Tenants are not interested due to white grass. And that's what you were saying there, Lulu, that, making sure that you just maintain the grass. Because when you look at it, you're just like, when is this grass going to be green? Especially if, let's say, you've listed it and it's now no longer winter and it's going towards spring, we should be seeing a bit of greenery. And you're thinking, if it's looking like this now, it's probably going to stay like that throughout the year.
100%. That exterior, that grass goes a long way. People take it for granted, but we all want to live in a space that feels like it's completely finished. And just that little patch of grass goes such a long way.
And it certainly does. I saw Nkateko had a comment, I think let's bring that back up on the screen, where she was talking about, I think it was the patch of, she was saying private property, that's the market. I know once there's a carpet, the closing remark will be, we love it, but we do love tiles here. And that's such an important one, right? Because carpet, you just think you spill a glass of red wine and now the carpet is dirty and then it doesn't want to, be removed, or anything that gets spilled, it's suddenly dirty. You can't just wipe it away. So thinking about those things becomes so important. So if you're doing home renovations, Don't go putting a carpet in a property that you want to essentially rent out. Lulu, before I let you go this evening, any final tips for our viewers at home who are looking to do home improvement projects to add that little bit of value? Because I think this is that time when we look at the crisis that we're finding ourselves with COVID, we want to be able to make money in different ways and save money in different ways. So even as we're looking at the home improvement projects that we want to do, we're obviously going to be budget conscious as much as possible, but also get value as much as possible. Any final tips that you'd like to share with our viewers at home when it comes to improving our homes within budget and on time?
Yeah. As always, I advocate for this so much. Please use the right suppliers, use the right contractors, do your due diligence on contractors, because if you've already laid out your budget, as Zama has said, and you know whether you want to do a large sort of improvement or a small improvement, it doesn't matter what size improvement you want to do, make sure you've got the right people so it doesn't end up costing you more than your initial budget. Another little piece of advice or a tip that I really want to add is that of changing light fixtures. I know I'm adding a different one and added one, Zama, please forgive me. But light fixtures are also just a small little change that can make all the difference when you're investing in properties. And that's more of an aesthetic change, but it can make a huge difference. So consider, changing those lights, not using those old school dome light fixtures, but adding some interesting lights. And those are small changes that don't have to cost a lot, but can definitely make a difference and can be changed over the years quite easily.
Lulu, we are going to leave it there. The important thing there is use the right contractor. And I know that Lulu, every time we're going to have Lulu on, she's definitely going to share that with us. The last time we had her on, that was one of the big things that she also said, that, it's not enough to plan well and budget well and know what you want and run your numbers efficiently. If you're not going to work with the right team, then your project is going to be doomed regardless. So it's so important to do your due diligence before you pay a deposit. Make sure both you and the contractor you're about to work with understand what needs to be done. If it means putting in a contract in place, which of course we'd recommend, do put in that contract in place so that you're able to hold them accountable to the deliverables that are in that contract. Lulu, thank you so much for joining us. It's always a pleasure having you here on the Private Property Podcast. And that is Lulu Mutsikira. And that is Lulu Mutsikira, who's the creative director at Namasaya. It has been quite a great episode. I'm sure a lot of you are looking to, do those home improvement projects now, understand some of the key things you should be looking out for. If you're looking to resell, I know some people are looking to, maybe offload some properties from their portfolio, or if you're looking to get in tenants, we keep saying that various landlords, we are adjusting our prices because the market is, there's a lot happening on the rental market. So maybe you're adjusting your prices, but we also know that there's quite a lot of oversupply of rental stock on the market. So you also want to make sure that your property stands out as much as possible. So these were some of the things that you should definitely consider to invest in when you want to make those home improvements that are either going to resell your property quicker or certainly get the right tenants in your property quickly. And well, that brings us to the end of the Private Property Podcast. And it has been a pleasure with you. It's a Monday. I know that this week is potentially very short. Some of you are probably going to have a nice long weekend, but I'm back again with you tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. where we're also going to be talking property. And I think one of the big things, and I want us to continue this conversation online, is to look at what some of those home renovations that you've done that have added value, because we want to learn from each other. What are some of the things that you've changed, that you've seen that if I change this one thing, more people kind of stand up and comment about how well my property is. And what are some of the things that you probably should have changed? I mean, already we've seen one, changing grass is important, and Lulu did mention this one. So if your grass isn't that great, you probably want to make sure that you invest in having that changed, making sure that your carpets are changed, because a lot of us are not going to be able to live in, homes that have carpets because of allergies or whatever reasons. So do let us know what some of those are. We want to hear from you. That's a wrap from me, Zama. I'm back again on your screens tomorrow evening. Until then, as usual, hoping you're staying home and staying safe.
Hi, I'm Nicoline Terblanche and I'm part of the SA Women's Hockey team. And I'm the technical director of Tax Hockey. And I'm also the assistant coach for the first team ladies. I moved to Ferry Glen about 5 years ago. Ferry Glen is a really safe place and the people are really kind. Some of my friends live really close by in suburbs like Equestria and Olympus. In the morning I will wake up, make myself a cup of coffee, go for a jog in the Ferry Glen Nature Reserve, or even just in the neighborhood. It's safe, quiet, and the environment is really nice. I love Ferry Glen because I'm near the city, but I'm not in the city. I like to go to Pretoria Country Club to clear my mind, on my own, to relax and just to enjoy a round of golf. In Pretoria East we really have nice places to visit like Menlyn Mall and Brooklyn Mall that is really close by. There are also a lot of top schools in the area like Pretoria Boys High and Hoërskool Menlo Park. One of the most beautiful places to see the whole of Pretoria is the Fort Kapperkop viewpoint. And that's my neighborhood.